Our keynote speaker tonight is a Democratic candidate running for Superintendent of Public Instruction, Dr. Terry Ruiz. Dr. Ruiz has 35 years as an educator. She's been president of Glendale Community College. Dr. Ruiz, thank you for being here tonight. I'm very excited to hear what you have to say. You have up to 15 minutes, and we'll follow that with some Q&A. The mic is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for having me join you tonight. It's always an honor. I have so many people I want to thank for this opportunity, starting with Maggie and Barbara and Teresa as well, for making this opportunity happen. So, hello. My name is Dr. Terry Leyba Ruiz. Please call me Terry. I am a 35-year career educator, and I am running to be the next state superintendent of public instruction for the 1 million students and educators across Arizona who deserve to have an educator who will advocate for our students and for our schools. It's an honor, to enter into this race because it's the right thing to do. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am a third generation Arizonan. You saw that I was raised in South Phoenix, very much like South Tucson. In fact, my parents were raised in South Tucson, and both are graduates of Pueblo High School. Come from very, very humble beginnings, but my parents really emphasized the importance of pursuing our dream, whatever that dream was. And for me, that dream was becoming a math teacher. I wanted to become a math teacher in South Phoenix because I wanted to make a difference to the lives of the students in my community. And that's exactly what I was able to do. I did that for 25 years, teaching math across all grade levels, middle school, high school, and at the college. And along the way, I had this idea that I wanted to have a bigger impact. So I went back to ASU and I earned a doctoral degree so that I would have the credentials needed so that eventually I could become the president of Glendale Community College, which, by the way, is one of the 5 largest community colleges in the state of Arizona. And I like to share that story because that shows the power and the promise of public education. That a kid like me from humble beginnings in South Phoenix, public education laid that foundation for me to not only reach my dreams of becoming a math teacher, but becoming the president of one of the largest institutions in our beautiful state. And I think about how what's happening now, the attacks on public education, the attacks on our students, it just became too much. Would you agree that these are just not normal times? And I realized I couldn't just sit quietly on the sidelines. It's never in me to be quiet, sit quietly anyway, but I couldn't sit silently on the sidelines and allow these attacks to happen. And so after I retired from Glendale Community College, I went to work for a statewide nonprofit. And I resigned from that position last year in January and entered into this race because it was unacceptable what Tom Horn was doing. The attacks on our students, the baseless attacks on our educators, and the individual whose sole job it is to advocate for public education was failing Arizona and failing our students and failing our educators and families. And that's when I decided, can't sit silently here. You need to jump in. So I resigned. I entered into the race. And along the way, the very first person I spoke to was Kathy Hoffman, our former superintendent. And I said, Kathy, are you going to run? This was like in May of 24. 20, yeah, it was probably May of 24. And she said, no, she wasn't going to run. But she was very giving with information. And I said to her, how did you do this? How did you go from being a classroom teacher to becoming the superintendent? So she was very helpful. And one of the most important things she did for me was she offered me her campaign manager. And so I'm really honored to share that my campaign manager is Kathy's former campaign manager who led her to victory in 2018, which is just wonderful because I know how to run a college. I had no idea how to run a race. I'm a career educator. I'm not a politician. So that was important. And since then, since we launched in March of 25, and since then we have now been to all 15 counties. And I say that so proudly because we have gone all over our state in like less than probably about 6 months. We have hit all 15 counties, making sure that we are talking to large urban areas, but also our rural areas and small communities that are often forgotten and feel neglected. And it's important. This is the teacher in me, right? You always pay attention to that quiet kid that sits in the back. And just like our rural communities, I wanted to make sure that they have an advocate in me, that I will listen to their needs and concerns and be their advocate at the state capitol. And I have learned so much as we travel the state from, small areas up in Page, Arizona, where quite literally the school is crumbling down around the students. The gym is held up by hydraulic jack lifts. It's unconscionable. To tiny little places like Skull Valley. If you've never heard of Skull Valley, it's a beautiful little community outside of Prescott. There's 45 students in the entire district. It's a one school district. It's 45 kids. I taught a summer class one year, an algebra high school class with 45 kids. There's 45 kids in the whole school. And what was beautiful about whether it's Skull Valley or Page or a dual language program in Flagstaff or in the Maricopa County is this intense commitment from the educators. We're there every day working really hard, even though they're feeling, overworked and, forgotten and disrespected. They are there every day making sure that the students' needs are being met. And that's something that we want to highlight. So as I travel the state, you know, it's important that we give voice to the communities and that we highlight the amazing educators that are there doing this noble work every day. Um, Part of my journey has been, ensuring that not only are we gaining support around the state, but I'm also gaining support from elected officials. And so I want to give a shout out and thanks to Kathy Hoffman. She has endorsed our campaign, and I'm so honored for her endorsement. I have the endorsement of our representative from LD18, Nancy Gutierrez. Very honored for her endorsement as she's an educator as well. And most recently, we've just announced the endorsement from Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva. These endorsements, they matter because these are elected leaders who know me, who know my background and my history and my commitment to public education, and they're willing to put their name behind me to help push me forward. So their endorsements mean so much to me. And, I hope to earn your support as well. As I travel the state, you could imagine some of the concerns that pop up. The number one concern, regardless of where I'm speaking, whether it's down south in Patagonia or Tubac or in Tempe, it's always comes back to the ESA vouchers and the $1 billion that are being spent right now for those vouchers. Zero transparency, zero accountability. And while the superintendent of public instruction cannot change that law, that's up to our elected leaders in the legislature. What I can do and what I will do on day one is we will stop the auto approval of any expense under $2,000, which Tom Horn is currently, he refuses to stop that, even though Attorney General Mays has asked him to stop. He refuses. He's continuing to auto approve anything. And we have seen the reports. We know what the ridiculous things that are being bought, the non-educational purchases, not alone the cell phones and flat screen TVs, but the ridiculous, the lingerie, diamond rings. That ends day one. We are not going to auto approve anything without looking at it and reviewing it because we're talking about taxpayer dollars. And our taxpayers deserve to have an advocate making sure that these important resources are really being spent on educational needs. So we'll put an end to that day one. The other thing we'll do is we'll create a data dashboard so that, again, let's be transparent with this data from the Educational Empowerment Scholarship Vouchers. Right now, up in Phoenix, Channel News 12 News is actually suing both Tom Horn and the current state treasurer, Kimberly Yee, because they're refusing to give up that information. They're holding tight to it. Why are they holding on to that? What's in there that they don't want taxpayers to see? Well, we will be transparent. We will make sure that taxpayer dollars have public dollars should have public accountability, and that's going to come in the form of a data dashboard. Some other things that we will do day one. So Tom Horn has a penchant for suing our schools. And even though the Arizona Supreme Court he's lost every time in court for suing schools because they offer a dual language program. And he has been told you do not have the standing to sue a school, and he continues to appeal. Well, just recently, the Arizona Supreme Court finally struck it down, but he's not ending. He's still suing schools for other reasons. Who sues schools? This is the public school advocate who should be the advocate, and he's failing. So we're no longer going to sue our schools. Our job is to lift, to make sure schools have the resources they need. You know, one of the big concerns, of course, is also the teacher workforce pipeline. We need to stabilize our workforce. And in talking with Arizona State University, there's some fabulous ideas coming out of our universities working to address and stabilize the teacher workforce shortage. So let's lean into this. Let's lean into the researchers who have data that shows some new models are really making a difference, not only here in Arizona, but that model is being replicated around the country. And Tom Horn is refusing to even have this conversation with them and to listen to what can be good for Arizona. So at the end of the day, my running for this office is all about let me be the shield that will protect our educators, that will protect our students, and bring in the resources and the ideas and the innovation that are going to benefit our students. And I'm here to ask for your support. We are still collecting signatures, and so we'll put in the chat the link to my website. Your support by signing my petition, by making a donation to help sustain this important campaign goes a long, long way. We're really proud to share that we have more individual donors than both Tom Horn and Kimberly Yee combined. And Kimberly Yee, who is primarying Tom Horn, she has just been endorsed by Turning Point. And so it's going to be a power race here, but I'm up for the challenge and I will be ready on day one when we elect a leader into this important position. We will walk in with plans ready to move to do what we can to protect taxpayer dollars, but also to be the advocate for our students and families and educators. I thank you for this opportunity to come in and meet with you. I'm happy to answer your questions. I have lots more to share, but I didn't want to overwhelm you with all this information. So happy to answer your questions.
How will you navigate the impact of universal ESA vouchers on district enrollment and funding?
So the impact of the ESA vouchers, we know, is siphoning $1 billion out. And so again, while I couldn't remove the vouchers, what I will do is I'll follow the law. And right now, when Tom Horn is auto approving anything under $2,000, it has been shown that there's been up to 20% of, some people call them errors, some people call it fraud. Things are being purchased that are not allowed. It's in the state, the handbook, the ESA voucher handbook of what's allowed and what's not. So there are things that are being purchased that aren't allowed, but because Tom Horn is refusing to even review those purchases and the expenses, and he's just auto approving things, it's a waste of taxpayer dollars and an absolute disregard to what the handbook is saying. I'll follow the law, but I will follow it to a T and I will be transparent with the information because we have a right to know how our taxpayer dollars are being spent. And then how can we find ways to transition some of those dollars back to our districts? He has a lot of crazy ideas on siphoning more money away. Why are we taking more money away from our schools? We should be finding ways to bring resources in. And he's missed that opportunity as well.
There's another question in the chat. Can you address safety and security in schools?
Mhm. So that's a big concern for everyone, right? We want our students safe. Side note, on the ESA vouchers, we don't know if our children are safe, right? We don't know who's teaching our children in the private schools and in the home schools because we don't have the ability to do background checks on any of the privates or homeschools. But as far as keeping our schools safe in our public schools, Tom Horn had $180 million that he had available, and he put the word out. Do you need a school resource safety officer or do you want a counselor? And the data shows that far and away, if you requested a school safety, an SRO, you were going to get funded. But if you requested a counselor, more than likely you weren't going to get funded. We need to find a way, to honor what the schools are needing. But if a school is asking for a counselor, let's give them a counselor. Let's just not say no. Tom Horn will always say he'd rather have an SRO on campus over a counselor. And every school is different, but every school knows what they need. And if a school is asking for a counselor, then I'm going to make sure they get one.
Thanks, Terry. It was really nice to have you here. Thank you for taking time to talk to our community and for running. It's so important that people like you step up and run. Thank you.
It matters. And if it didn't matter, believe me, do something else. But our schools are worth fighting for, and our students deserve a leader and an advocate who's going to fight for them. So I thank you for the opportunity and would love to have your support.
So do you have your signatures yet?
We're in the buffer zone now. So
Okay.
we are planning, we actually have our appointment already set for March 20th to submit our signatures, and our hope is that we will submit a historic number. And so please share that out. We want to have, double what are needed. It sets a statement, it sets a message.
Yeah, we're pushing that a lot, but we push extra hard if you were still in the hunt.
Yep, on my website. Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.